out in the country, Brendan. We got us a good one today.
I went hot and cold. I go a little hot, and then when it gets I get a little colder, it gets a little hotter.
What is the name of that coffee place?
That's Dunkin' Donuts, dog.
Okay, it looked like something flirty. Okay, hey, we got Chris Plank, the Plank Show, KREF radio in Norman, Oak City. Gonna talk some Oklahoma Sooners. What's going on out there in year one with that proud program? Also, Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline. Rodney Orr, Tyler Insider, going to check in with us. And want to say hello to everybody watching. And do us a favor. It means money. Subscribe. Hit the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner. It is so important to the growth of this show. We are growing. It's a grassroots effort. We've got great viewers, great sponsors. We are here with you Monday through Friday. Sometimes we do a Saturday show on location or whatever, but get pen and paper handy. We want to do a pop-up show like we did
Never
after
know.
the.
Never know.
You never know. If Brendan says, "Can you be ready in 15?" I'm like, "Sir, I'm ready for duty." Hey, let's make it happen. Get ready, pen and paper handy, because here we come. Great show ahead.
All right. So, Rob Browne, you're in Memphis. I'm in Florida, and I'm bringing this music down a little bit because my little slider bar is a little small here. I was just talking to somebody who was in Memphis, and they were telling me how lovely your weather is there right now, and you have nothing to bitch about anymore because it's great. Perfect.
Hey, I'm
out here in the hurricanes, and you're up there, and you're in in the Bahamas.
It is gorgeous. It's going to be 81 today. It's 53 right now. Sunny skies.
Where's Chris Plank, by the way? Where is he located? Because I bet
Chris Plank is located in.
He's in. We caught him. We caught him.
Chris,
we caught him early.
Yeah, Chris is in Norman, which is really, if you look at the city, at the ADI. Chris loves these radio terms. Great job, by the way, on Rebel Yell Hotline last night with Yancy Porter. Those guys loved you. Chuck Roundsville. I was listening, and Chris was talking about the Oklahoma Ole Miss game coming up this weekend, but. Chris, the Norman, Oklahoma City ADI is one big happy family. It's all bled over because downtown Norman to Gaylord Family Stadium is 25-minute drive?
From downtown OKC to the same. Probably it's juiced up a little bit, Rob, because in the growth of Moore, Oklahoma, we've developed one of the greatest traffic mind F's on the planet. So so basically what you do is when you're traveling from Oklahoma City to Norman, you sit in traffic around Moore, Oklahoma. But no, it's about 30 minutes. And then Tulsa's only, on a good day, an hour 45 away. So you're looking 30 minutes from downtown OKC.
It's big. If you want to go to a cluster fudge of traffic, go over the mountain in Birmingham, on 280. It's one of the worst in the world. And of course, Atlanta, our oldest daughter lives over there, less than a mile from the Braves stadium. Atlanta can be, Audrey lived there for 10 years. You can be in traffic. A 10-minute commute can be an hour and a half. You never know. But hey, let's talk about something happy. SEC football.
Well, I was going to say happy could be Britain's Florida Gators all of a sudden, man. That could be happy now.
Calm down. I've been down this road before. I'm not getting excited, okay? I'm just not. This is what's going to happen. We're going to get 6 wins. Everyone's going to be like, but it was so close.
Right.
We get him one more year. He needs another year. We give him another year. He's a great recruiter. He's a nice guy. He's such a good dude.
He's got a good haircut. He's a great guy.
I have
Love
PTSD.
Hey, Chris, you do a great job on the radio. I'm an AM radio, FM radio, satellite junkie. So is Brendan. I love to listen to radio. You are fantastic on the sidelines. You do a great job of detailing what's going on.
I watched you too. You do a great job.
You really do. And it's so powerful. Let's check down on the sidelines, Plank. They just go Plank. They call you Plank on the Oklahoma network. But what are you seeing right now? I got a text from one of our viewers up in Clarksville, Tennessee this morning. Mm-hmm. This is the world we live in. He goes, hey, here's the rumor. Lincoln Riley gets fired at Southern Cal, comes back to Oklahoma. That's where we are right now. Other than that, everything's normal. But I love Brent Venables. I think he's an
I do too.
outstanding coach. He's one of the best defensive coaches that you'll see anywhere. When they rolled you talked about Dylan Gabriel. Explain to our viewers, because you laid it out there last night about how they got where they are at the quarterback situation. And sorry we caught you off guard this morning, but
no.
on.
I thought I was good to go, and as I kind of fancy myself a technical guy
good.
when I got here, and I didn't have my computer charged up.
It's okay. We've got cameras wired all throughout your house, so we can pick you up at any time. At any time, we'll get you. Don't worry.
It's wild because the narrative becomes Oklahoma chased off Dylan Gabriel because they wanted to play Jackson Arnold.
Yeah.
And that's not the truth, but I could understand why people think that way. How could you let him get away when Dylan Gabriel's doing what he's doing at Oregon? So, I understand. I think I understand time constraints, but I'll do my best to keep it in a digestible nugget. Gabriel had never anticipated to play another year of college football. He was done after last season. He was off to the NFL. He got his draft grade back. It wasn't what he expected. He realized, I can make a hell of a lot more money playing college football than I can going to the NFL and being a 5th, 6th, 7th round guy, battling on a practice squad. So let me go see what my value is. And in doing that, I didn't know this part until Brent Venables told us. In doing that, he went to Brent Venables and said, hey, I want to move closer to home. So it's been a great run here for 2 years. I'm off. I never knew that part. And I don't think many people did. I think the idea was whenever he decided that he was coming back, everyone just kind of shook hands and said, thanks for the time. Yeah. Enjoy it. Thanks for the training and guidance you gave Dylan Gabriel. Jackson Arnold. So obviously, as the results have played out, it looks really bad because let's just use it. Another school that's a great example. Kansas State decided to let Will Howard walk and went with Avery Johnson. Things are going pretty well there now for Avery Johnson and the job that Matt Wells has done with that offense at Kansas State. Complete 180, right? It has not gone well here. Meanwhile, Gabriel is up there on the Heisman. I don't know why I'm pointing to the wall, but Gabriel's up there with the Heisman favorites, and Oregon's the number 1 team in the country. So it's just it could not have, if you want to use the term, backfired more from a PR perspective from Oklahoma. But there was no, hey, Dylan, you want to be here, get out of here from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah. What I had heard, was the same thing. He got NFL grades. They weren't as good as he had anticipated. Right. And I think Oregon, that opportunity, he's from Hawaii. People forget he's from Honolulu. I think he went to St. Louis Catholic School, where my kids went, but in Memphis, not in Honolulu. But and the money part was there. And you know this, Chris, but if anyone ever doubts Oklahoma's financial statement, they can go with anybody. There's a ton of oil money out there, but they've got a passionate fan base that's unbelievable.
And it's very angry right now. Yeah. It's very angry right now.
Yeah.
And it should be. And it's kind of funny because the knock is, see what the SEC will do to you. And I'm like, well, you're right, but I think this would be happening to Oklahoma in the ACC and the Big 12 and the Big 10 right now. They just can't block anyone. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it. And it's not from a lack of an effort. And I don't think it's from a lack of a preparation. It's just they're not very good on the offensive line. I think that their defense is shown to be pretty solid. But then, teams have been able to get out to leads because of turnovers and mistakes. So you haven't really seen on both sides. Can Oklahoma be a team that would be forcing even more turnovers because teams would have to be aggressive and take shots against them? Yeah. Is it a defense that's been successful because teams really haven't had to do too much against them? So that can even be a question that people can throw up if they want. So there's money there. I think there's a lot of frustration, though, Rob, a lot of loud voices where it's, hey, we want to get offensive linemen and build. But, man, these offensive linemen that you guys have brought in, they're not getting it done. I mean, that offensive line is mostly portal.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. That was the big plus that, early on in the summer was that Oklahoma's the team getting into the portal and going to get bigger offensive and defensive linemen. So sometimes bigger is not better, faster is not better. I think those who don't study the game as much as like dorks like we do, don't realize that, it's a whole nother inner game within the game when you start getting with the hogs on the front, in the front. And when you add the SEC to that and the schemes that they're coming to, you're seeing pro set stuff.
Yeah, and you're seeing top 5, top 10, top 15 picks on the opposing team's defensive line.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not getting to go up against, Johnny Peppercorn, who's a really good college player, but is never going to play in the NFL. You're going up against dudes who are going to play on Sunday. Here's what's wild to me, too. It's made me question everything, Brendan, because it makes me wonder, do you just take your lumps and play the young guys on the offensive line? It's worked at Texas. It's worked at Georgia. Georgia has, one transfer on its offensive line right now. It's
maybe one.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think their center, Miami, whenever Miami, got there, Mario Cristobal came in, they decided to go to the portal to get their skill players and build on the offensive line. And Oklahoma's got a really good offensive line class coming in next year. You hope that you're able to keep it all together. But it's also about evaluations in the portal, too. And I think that's an area where Oklahoma has struggled a bit on the offensive line, those evaluations.
Well, guys, don't you think, too, a little bit is that we're seeing this metamorphosis of the game, per se, when we see all these, like we talk about all the time, the parity amongst, the different teams now. Maybe in the past, smash mouth football, line them up, go beat you, worked when you had, a lot of the best personnel or the toughest guys, or you could recruit it. But it just seems like now you got to get a little more sexy out there to score points.
Be more creative.
Yeah, a little more creative. Like more than 7 plays. That would be
right. Exactly. And, it's kind of wild just to make it specific to Oklahoma guys. And what I've seen, Seth Luttrell, who was fired this week as the offensive coordinator, talk about, I guess the term would be sexifying things on the offense.
Sure.
They put in apparently a new 50-play package during their bye week against Texas. And in that first quarter, you're like, well, look at this. This looks pretty cool. Some of the things they're doing. And then it just tanked. Wow. So, I think here they've tried some things. So far, it just hasn't worked. And you got to remember, not saying that anyone hasn't brought this up, but Jeff Lebby's at Mississippi State now, and Oklahoma tried to elevate from within to have a guy run his offense that had his own version of what an offense would look like. So you were trying to mesh something together and keep it internal and make it easy for Jackson Arnold whenever you had, a bunch of people Seth Luttrell essentially learning a new language, and it just made it tough.
Well, I remember something like this happening. The 1 year Bobby Petrino was at Auburn, 2002. After he left in December to take the Louisville head coaching job, Tuberville hired from within. He took the offensive line coach, Hugh Nall, former Georgia player, and Steve Ensminger, and they called it Nallsminger. And Auburn was a top 5 preseason team, ended up 8-5. The next year they went 13-0. But the point is, when you're talking about Auburn, if you were not when you're talking about Oklahoma a minute ago, if you didn't say you were talking about Oklahoma, you'd be talking about Auburn. It's the exact same thing. You cannot go to the secondhand store and and build an offensive line. And I'm looking at the like Brendan's term, duct tape and baling wire to hold these together. I'm with you. Look, the Nebraska model in the day was unlike anything I've ever seen. Dean Steinkuhler, Dan Kroger, Dave Remington. He ain't gonna be on the front of GQ or anything, but he was a great offensive lineman. I remember watching him in college in the press box. Their offensive line was so powerful. I thought they were offsides every play. That's when you've seen something that's otherworldly. But no, they weren't. But never. But you know what, Chris? I think you're right. I would go with the freshmen and build for the future because the portal's good for a few skill players. But Kirby's just like Dabo. As Ellis Johnson talked about that with us yesterday. His son's on the team at Clemson, and he knows Dabo very well. They're very similar. Maybe take 5 or 6 guys a year in the portal. How many did Oklahoma take, and how many are they averaging?
Well, Brent wants to average taking 5 or 6.
Okay.
His first year in was a massive number. I want to say close to 16.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I think it was 14 and maybe 10 for this season, maybe. That's where Brent wants to
Okay.
be. And I think that's where a majority of college football coaches want to be.
I agree with that.
Here's the problem, though, that they face. And Brendan, you can probably speak to this better than anyone. And I guess Rob now, too, with Hugh potentially being on the hot seat, you don't have that luxury of saying, I've got 5 freshmen or 4 freshmen and a sophomore, or 3 freshmen and 2 sophomores, and we're going to develop this offensive line. We're going to take our lumps. You can't. You got to go win games, right?
Yeah,
and I'm not
saying
right. You won't with that, but you feel a lot better when you have experience there. Yeah. So, Brent's got a long-term contract. And, Joe Stigley, the athletic director at Oklahoma, I think anticipated struggles. Now, not like this. Not like this. But I think they anticipated struggles, which is why they extended him before the season started, and they didn't want to have negative recruiting going on. The problem is now with the embarrassment of the last few weeks and no fix in sight for the offense, it leads you to believe, guys, that that clock is ticking now. So you can't afford to say, all right, I'm bringing in these true freshmen. They're going to start on the offensive line. You need guys to go ASAP.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you have to, because you have to win. I mean, look, you can't, because of the rules, right? The way it's set up right now, you can't build for the future. You have to build for the next week. Right. In a lot of ways. And that's because we just don't know. It's the wild, wild west, right? So we don't know if we piss this guy off, is he going to jump in the portal or
leave now?
Right. And that whole deal. Yeah. And that's why I'm not surprised to see like armies and these military schools doing better, because they have that internal sort of structure. That seemingly is lacking in what we see in the game now. But I guess my question to you is, with Oklahoma and to everybody, it's like, we're looking at Vandy beating Bama, right? We're looking at all these different things. What do we do? Like, what does Oklahoma do? Because the answer was go back to the portal. Or is it better recruiting? Well, I don't know. Like, how do you really recruit? Or is it development of current talent? It's very difficult to be a head coach, I think, right now in college football.
I think there's one thing that Brent has going for him, Brandon, because it's a great question. He does have the support of the administration. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a big deal, right? I think whenever you're talking about trying to figure out what you want to do, a lot of times you realize that clock is ticking. Mm-hmm. So you might have to hit the craps table, and next thing you know, you crap out and you're done. Brent has, I think he has a little bit of security on that front. But that's the great question. I don't know. You look, Illinois' got a portal offensive lineman that Oklahoma was in on that's having a really good year. You watch Kennard from Georgia Tech, or from South Carolina. Yeah. He was a Georgia Tech transfer, right? I mean, it's just you hit these home runs out of the portal, and then you look, again, I'm not picking on the kid or my beloved Sooners, but Spencer Brown was supposed to be one of the top guys out of the portal, Michigan State right tackle, and he's not very good. So these portal evals are just, I don't know how these guys do it. I don't know how they figure out.
We're creating individuals, though. Like, there's no team, and football's team. So it's such a team sport, right?
Everything.
So it's like, we don't have time to go in and do it. And that's why you start looking at the coaching model and saying, how do you win? And I, talk about like guys like Urban Meyer, who's, hey, like, who do I got on the field right now to go win this football game? I think you got to be thinking, that mindset a little bit more. So start the freshmen. I mean, you don't have a choice. Run them out there, because they may not. They may screw you next year.
Right. And here's the other thing. That you got to find out.
Yeah.
You got to figure out if they can play. I'll give you just 2 examples here for Oklahoma: Eugene Brooks and Eddie Pierre-Louis. Very talented 4-star, 3-star offensive lineman, whatever. Okay. But all we hear is how good the practices are. That's great. Let's get them out there and let's see. You're looking at a team that has won one SEC game, and it took an absolute miracle to do it, right? So to me personally, I'm with you, man. Get those young guys out there, and not just on the offensive line. Let's see it wide receiver. Let's see it tight end.
Quarterback, DJ Lagway. I mean,
well, you're seeing right. You're seeing it right
and
now.
And look at the difference, because the locker room gets divided on certain guys, right?
Yeah,
and this guy can win and this guy can't.
You've got Lagway. We've got the debate between Hawkins and Jackson Arnold right now.
Yeah. Right.
So well, here's an interesting thing. We all remember 30 years ago how heavy junior college was pushed.
JUCO was everything.
Jackie Sherrill built Mississippi State up, really, really strong program, 97 to 2000. But it was also kind of, what got him to leave coaching, because in 01, 2, and 3, they started going downhill. if you bring a guy in for a year versus a guy that can stay there for 3 years, that's tough. I mean, it's the quick fix or the long-term solution. Sometimes people put off a surgery and they suffer, and then the other knee is bad, and they got to have both knees replaced.
Right.
That's where we are in college football right now. Let's look now at this Ole Miss matchup. Ole Miss's defense, especially their front seven, has been really strong.
Yeah.
Their offense, and you listen to Rebel Yell Hotline, and Yancy will be on with us here in just a few minutes. Rebel Yell Hotline, but man, their fans are madder than a bunch of wet hens about the lack of production on offense. What's going on with Ulysses Bentley IV? That guy has barely played this year, and Henry Parrish he was the third team running back before. They don't know what's going on, but they know their defense is pretty strong, and they can make a case. We've lost 2 games on the last play of the game.
Yeah.
But this is a loser leaves town match. This is, Vince McMahon might be the PA announcer, but for Ole Miss it is. Oklahoma, obviously, I guess at this point, they're not in the playoff hunt, but they still, that program better than I do, but I followed that program since I was a kid. That's a proud program. Tradition really matters. It means more when you're losing because you remember, hey, here's what we've been before. And someone like, Barry Switzer or Bob Stoops reminds you of that and going, don't you ever not give a full 60. And so,
Right.
Oklahoma's going to come in. I was at that Auburn-Oklahoma game. You can just feel the pride. You can see it, and they travel well too.
Yeah. I love the analogy of a loser leaves town match because we get into this situation, I think, in the SEC where nationally everyone wants to count out 2 lost teams, but suddenly if you were to look at Ole Miss's resume and what they got Georgia, if they beat Georgia in a couple weeks, they're right back in this. But if they lose to Oklahoma, they're completely out, right?
Yeah.
So really, and you saw this, Rob, firsthand. The simple key for Oklahoma is this: you got to stay in the game till the fourth quarter. If you have yourself a double-digit deficit, likely going into the fourth quarter, you're probably done. But their defense is good enough to keep them in games. The problem is they have got to get something going offensively, and the defense I've seen from Ole Miss doesn't look like it's going to allow you to do that. So this is going to be this could turn into one of 2 things. This could turn into a rock fight to where we go to the fourth quarter and it's like Kentucky and Ole Miss, or this could be a boat race. Ole Miss might get out early. The place is rocking, and you might see some frustration from Oklahoma. What you said earlier, though, really resonates. It's a proud program. It's a proud team. Danny Stutzman was up and down that bench. I was watching it firsthand whenever things were not going well. They were still fighting and clawing. So I've loved everything I've learned about Ole Miss since we've come to the SEC. I love the people. I love Lane. I love the team. But, it's also you wonder how they will handle adversity. They did a great job after the loss to Kentucky to come back, go to South Carolina, and beat the snot out of South Carolina. But then to have, you go to LSU and have that frustration in a game you led the whole way, I'm really intrigued to see how they respond. And I think they'll respond well on Saturday.
And sorry to interrupt, but I just feel like this to me is the hidden gem of the SEC, the 12th man, right? When you have, people always talk about the negative of the big fan base. Look, I got a website for Florida Gators, man. They're my team. We have a huge fan base, right? It's 6th biggest in the country or something. But whatever. Point is they're negative. But when you need that fan base because you're on a run, or you need them to win a game, or you need them and because you're on the cusp, or you're 500, or you need to get into play, you need to get into the game, and you need your 12th man. That's why I feel like these 100,000 people filled stadiums in the SEC, and your fan base really starts to rally around what you're doing. And I think that's where it's hard for a Kiffin or whatever. It's not that they don't have a big fan base or anything, of that nature. It's just that feeling, the swagger of the swamp, or the swagger of, of these, of places that have been there before. Right. When you hear the echoes of the past and the ghosts of the past and walk on the fields and all that stuff, that to me, that's when it starts to matter when you get down the run in the stretch.
I agree. And, here's the other part of it,
right?
For just speaking on the Oklahoma side of things. All these experiences are new. And the one thing is the Oklahoma fans are still excited about it. It's getting frustrating, but they're still excited about it. So I think as long as the Sooner fans stay engaged in BV, I think as long as they continue to support like they have on the road, I think they're going to be in good shape to bounce back.
We have to abuse you completely in the SEC to make you feel good. It is complete and total child abuse here. You're going to have to.
I hear what you're saying. You're 100% right. And listen, I don't know how closely Yancy is to jumping on, but Brendan, Rob, here's the thing that has sucked the most about this for Oklahoma fans is that in the end, everyone was right. Everyone was right. All the stuff they said about you, they were right now. Oh, your offensive line won't be able to handle the SEC. Oh, you better be prepared in the SEC because you're going to get your head kicked in. And the whole way, Oklahoma's like, no, we got Bill Beanbo. We're going to be fine on the offensive line. We got Jackson Arnold. We're going to be good. We're built for this. And so far, it's been what everyone said, right? And not what we felt. And I think that's what has sucked the most about it because you're having to sit there and just be like, yeah, you guys are right. We'll see if we can't bounce back from this.
Because you scratch your head and you're like, shit, I thought we got bigger on offense. I thought we did this. I thought we went and got guys. I thought we did this. And here we are now. And all of a sudden, Bama's losing to Vandy. Dogs and cats are sleeping together. Fire and brimstone falling from the sky. I mean, it's crazy. But that's the way it is. And now we're talking about Vandy. And no one had that on their bingo card, even of the best of the best of the best. And I think that is the SEC. That's what you just never know. It's like the Bermuda Triangle of college football.
Well, and you know, it's crazy, Chris, along those lines. Vandy never trailed against Alabama. Now, in the SEC, Nashville, when Vandy plays Alabama and Auburn and Georgia and Tennessee, 70 or 80% of the crowd is those fans. That's what Nashville is. Yeah. And Clark Lee, you heard him at media days. We all did. Everybody in that football building has been brought in by this staff, and they've all signed up for what we believe in. That's a big difference. Losing toxic culture, you can't have anything to do with it. But Oklahoma has a lot of guys like Danny Stutzman, who's like Rip on Yellowstone, okay? He's just a bad son of a – I mean, you know that. I mean, he's just – and Bowman, your safety, good God. Tough dude. Oklahoma has a brand, and the Wall Street Journal ranked the brands in the SEC 3 years ago when it announced that Texas and OU would join the SEC. Texas was at $1.18 billion, Alabama $1 billion, $8 million, and then it was Georgia $982 million, Oklahoma, $921 million, and Auburn at $872 million. Those brands have gone up since then, but there's just a lot of power and appeal. And when you go down to Oxford, and Yancy's going to be on with us in just a moment, and I know you got to get going, but one thing is you're playing the 11 o'clock game. Right. And that always seems to favor the visiting team.
I know, and I hate the 11 o'clock game.
Yeah, and the Ole Miss fans will not have eaten enough or had enough to drink. And it's a tough
still
game.
Hungover or just not gone to bed yet.
Hadn't gone to bed. And it's if you jump on them early on any team, I mean, but we call this the timeout game, having raised 3 kids. Like, go to timeout before I knock the hell out of you. But it's going to be a wild atmosphere because Oklahoma is just one of those. Again, the 70-year-old yet unseen photos of Marilyn Monroe in a bikini. Oklahoma is one of those programs that people look at like, wow. The Sooners are here. Y'all are they're gonna be jacked up for you. Where are you staying? Memphis or Oxford?
We're staying in Memphis, and 11 a.m. games. It's kind of funny. It's one of the reasons why Oklahoma got tired of the Big 12. They would always put you in that big noon kick slot. It sucks.
Oh, it's horrible.
But it's the best thing in the world when you're on the road. It really
is. It is because you're already in bed, no distractions. Awesome. Your team's already there. Yeah.
Now, will Oklahoma stay in Memphis and then bust down to Oxford probably?
That's my understanding. Yeah. We, as a radio crew, are staying in Memphis, and we usually stay with the team. Yes. So it's my understanding that we're staying there.
Here's Yancy on here right now. We'll let him talk to you real quick. I know you got a show at 9 on KREF Radio. And Yancy, a great segment last night with Chris Plank. I introduced y'all, but that was awesome. But we're talking about the 11 a.m. game in Oxford. You don't like it if you're the home team, but if you're the visiting team, you like it. Let's talk about the Sooners and the Rebels matchup. Loser shade. It's a hair match.
Yes, kind of a buzzkill at 11 a.m. I know that the Oklahoma fans are really excited about, coming to Oxford, and they put out something in the newspaper about a month ago they were expecting over 250,000 people in for the event, and then Ole Miss is obviously had a disappointing start to the season. Oklahoma as well, and then with the 11 a.m. kickoff, I mean, it'll still be packed, it'll still be loud, but the atmosphere will not be the same at 11 a.m. That is for sure.
Chris, you talked about those 11 a.m. games you had to suffer through in the Big 12. You got to change your routine around, but
Yeah.
it'll be when the Grove is what really ignited the passion of tailgating nationwide. You've got to go there. When you get to Oxford, it's one of the coolest college towns
Yeah.
that you've ever seen.
I think the thing that sucks for us on the radio side is we go in there and we got to work. We don't get the tailgate. we don't get my buddy Toby Rowland always jokes about it. He says there'll be people that say they come by the tailgate, come by this, and it's very rare. We have a 3-hour pregame show now. So for 11 a.m., we'll probably get there at about and then we have a local show that we do an hour before that. So we're on 4 hours before the game.
Good Lord!
But I think this is one of those where you kind of buck tradition. You got to get out there and experience it because, as Yancy said, this was one of those trips that everyone had they had circled. They'd said, "This is where I want to go. I want to experience that," because, we don't know what the schedule is going to look like, but you would think, at the very least, maybe 4 more years before Oklahoma's going to have an opportunity to go back to Ole Miss and the Grove. Yeah. So I think they'll travel well despite how Oklahoma's played. I really do. I think it's going to be fun.
They're going to travel, Chris. People on my street were getting $30,000 for the weekend for 2-night rentals. So the Oklahoma fans are going to be traveling. I can promise you that. $15,000 a night is pretty steep.
I'll sleep on the street in a sleeping bag if you'll.
I tried. I tried to get my wife, but she does not want any strangers in our house. Man. But I was like, "Come on, Kate, come on,
strangers, come on, stranger danger."
I mean, just absurd price. This is the most expensive pricing. Texas was, back in 2014, I think. Yeah. That kind of tipped the rates in Oxford, but this one beats the Texas in 2014 for sure.
Wow. Yeah. I hope Oklahoma plays up to it, man. I hope that they can give all those fans that are spending that kind of money the type of game that they anticipate or they want.
I'll put that in perspective. I've got friends that go down to Augusta for the week of the Masters, and they pay $50,000 a week to rent a house down there.
Yeah,
$50,000 for the week. Oxford, the Masters, OU, Ole Miss. Holy shnikes! Hey, you want breakfast? You know where you got to go? Hey, where does he need to go for breakfast Saturday morning? There are 2 places. You can go to the Beacon, which has got incredible breakfast. Or go to Bim Bam on Jackson Avenue. This one right here, that's my friend's daughter owns that. Burgers and breakfast. They've got a big breakfast. You can get you an M16 at the Beacon or at Bim Bam. An M16 is a meat and 16 sides.
The problem with breakfast on Saturday morning is that you'll have to wait there to game time to get in. It will be absolute. Because they don't do reservations because they don't want to cut fans out. So it will be mayhem. It's already starting to get crowded in Oxford on a Monday. So it's going to be, like I said, they were expecting over 250,000 people in for the event. So it's going to be very, very crowded.
Good.
Yeah. Well, it's an unbelievable. Is there anything better than college football, Chris?
No.
Road trips for you?
Yeah, and it's funny because we will road trip. We only get a certain number of seats on the plane, so we're getting a road trip through, and we're excited about that. Hope, like you said, hope there's a lot of Sooner fans. Sounds like there's going to be that make the trip. And I think Yancy, I got to jump off here, but I want to pose a question to Yancy real quick. What you were talking about, or the guys last night, and y'all were talking about the frustrations on offense. Can you help me better understand where you feel like the genesis are and why they're having so many issues offensively right now? at Ole Miss?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do, with they've had four offensive line starters out for the SEC games. They kind of all got hurt at one time in the non-conference schedule, and that hasn't given Dart much time to throw the ball. And for some strange reason, most of their plays have been slow developing 50-yard passes, and so they're kind of like pouring gas on the fire there, instead of doing quick hitters, some bubble screens, some tight end slants, and things in that nature. They're doing long developing plays, and it's just kind of feeding into their weakness right now. Now, the good news for Ole Miss is all four of those offensive linemen are coming back from during this bye week. So, but as offensive line, you know that everybody's got to be in tune and dancing together. And, will they be able to be in tune in that first game back when you're, transferring four of the offensive linemen that's been playing the last three games and substituting them with the four regular starters back in? I don't know. We'll see. I would expect Ole Miss to be kind of rusty because of that in the first quarter. And, everything from this game, from Ole Miss's perspective, is getting that offensive back. You returned 10 out of your 11 starters, a third-year quarterback that was, supposed to have been, a Heisman finalist and candidate there, and none of it makes sense. And then lastly, just their star running back Bentley doesn't get his first carries of the year into the LSU game, and nobody can understand that. And what does he do in the first game that they give him a chance back? He averages over 10 yards a carry,
Yeah.
runs for 100 and some plus yards. And, the guys that were playing in front of him averaged 2.3 yards a carry against LSU. So that is a mystery that I don't know if Lane will ever tell the story about what happened there.
Well, it's going to be interesting. I think it's a good Oklahoma defense, but I hope it's a game going into the fourth quarter because that's really going to make it fun,
Chris,
at least for Oklahoma fans.
Yeah, and listen, Chris,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on
Yeah,
with us. I
thanks,
know
Rob,
you
for
got to
having
go
me,
do
man.
your show. Let people know
Yeah,
how
you
they
were
can follow
unbelievable,
you.
Chris. Thank you for the show
Thanks,
last night.
Yancy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is the dumbest thing. My phone only works on speakerphone, but I learned about this thing that's called like you can do your microphone where it's like it's directional thing. So it's made all the difference in the world. Hey, we do Sooner Radio all day, 6 a to 6 p on kref.com. And again, you can search on the Varsity app for Oklahoma Sooners. Rob, and you can find our Sooner Radio Network, man. Love you guys. Thanks for having me on, man.
Hey, we'll do
Thank
it
you,
again
Chris.
soon. Have a safe trip to Oxford. All right,
All right.
Chris
See you,
Plank,
Yancy.
Boomer
You
Sooner.
too. Call me, Chris.
Boomer Sooner Network. And, golly, Yancy, I was driving back last night listening to Rebel Yell Hotline. I love that chemistry. You got you and Chuck, Gary Darby, and then Harry Harrison comes on from, I don't know, he's somewhere over in the Delta, it sounds like. And he was talking about, I was over at my sister's birthday party and with the sound turned down. I'm like, nobody has a birthday party during game time or weddings. I mean, why do people get married during football season? Are you out of your mind? That's what June is for. Well, late June, once we get past the College World Series, I'll give you late June to about the middle of July, and then SEC Media Days starts. You got a 6-week window. Try to get
Get
married
married.
then out of respect to other people. You know what I'm saying? But I love the Rebel Yell Hotline. Catch it Monday nights, 6 p.m., Sports 56, WHBQ Memphis, and Super Talk Mississippi. Lots of great content, lots of talk. And you broke it down last night. I could tell in y'all's voices collectively the frustration about the offense with all the weapons you had. And I'm with you. Ulysses Bentley the fourth, one of the best names. I just love that name, Ulysses Bentley the fourth. He's averaging his first carry against LSU was like what, a 50-yard
50
touchdown?
yarder. Yeah.
Yeah.
On
And
fourth and three.
he ran through tackles. This
Yeah.
guy's he's a legit all SEC running back if he could get enough carries. What's the minimum number of carries you got to have to qualify?
Well, if he doesn't become the feature back starting from this point on, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, like I said last night on the show, I don't think, not even the NCAA investigations have I seen the Ole Miss fan base collectively this angry right now. Yeah, I mean, it's just everywhere you go. That's all everybody's talking about. I mean, it's like blood coming out of their mouth when you hear them speak about Ole Miss. People are mad, and it's not. It's because you lose. You lose two games. You feel like you should have won handily, and especially the Kentucky game, the LSU. You probably should have won a lot more than you should against Kentucky. But then you see how Kentucky, gets beat the next 2 weeks after Ole Miss, and it's just I don't know. But here's the deal. The whole goal for the year was to get into the playoffs. It's not who cares if you're a 5 seed, 8 seed,
Yeah.
12 seed for any team. It's about making the playoffs, getting into the show. We all see in the NFL every year, and we see these wild card teams that are 9-8, and they get in and they go on a run and they win the Super Bowl. We see it in the MLB every year. Teams that are barely over 500, they get in, and it's who's hottest at the end of the year, right? So it's all there in front of them. If they win out, they're going to get in the playoffs. If they lose the game, there's about a 95% chance they don't make it. So it's the playoffs have officially started for Ole Miss. They've had 2 weeks now. They get their 4 offensive linemen back. They get their star defensive end back. Their star running back was let out of the jailhouse against LSU and Bentley. There's no excuses. There's no excuses. This team should not be where they are, but they are.
Well, you know what it is, Yancy? In the SEC, everybody, Rodney Orr joins us now from Tider Insider. It's only $48 a year since 1996. The era of greatness began in Tuscaloosa. The forums, the discussions, the information that Rodney Orr puts out, unmatched anywhere. And Tuesday nights at 6:30 in the p.m., that's the evening, folks. He and Gary Harris put on a great show called Tider Insider TV, a 30-minute show packed with 22 minutes of content and 8 minutes of great sponsors. Got to have them, love them. They cover it all, man. So, hey, where do we start? We got the Ole Miss fans, Yancy, I didn't mean to cut you off, talking about their frustration with the offense. And then you look at the Alabama fans right now that, albeit for a hell of an ending to the South Carolina game, hard to believe this could have been a third straight loss. But then again, had they lost to South Carolina, they probably would have come out on with their hair on fire against Tennessee. At least that's the logic that I see. But Rodney, make some sense out of it right now, if that is possible.
Well, I mean, I think it's just like what we've been talking about. I mean, a lot of mistakes, a lot of self-inflicted wounds, like I call them avoidable miscues. These types of things continue to hurt Alabama. Tennessee deserved to win the game. I mean, you could tell in the fourth quarter that they were the team that was kind of taking control. I'm going to tell you guys, I've been doing this, with Tider Insider for nearly 30 years now. I do not remember a player who is taking more criticism, maybe some that have been similar, but not anymore than what Milroe has taken this week. And it's not just on TiderInsider.com. I mean, it's pretty much everywhere. And now I'm going to change gears on you here a little bit in the direction I'm going with this. So we talk about the NIL, we talk about all these things. We talk about building your brand, right?
Yeah.
Well, and again, I'm not being critical of anyone. I want to be clear. But Jalen Milroe spent the spring and the summer showing up at events. He found every camera available to kind of do that, And again, nothing wrong with that. But here's the problem is when you start not performing well, fans don't forget that, right? We're in the summer, you were seeking out every camera. You were in New York, swapping jerseys and bats with Aaron Judge. You were at Talladega shaking Michael Jordan's hand. You were everywhere, right? It was almost like a political campaign. Again, I'm not knocking him. I'm just kind of giving you a little bit of insight into what's going on right now. And the fans have really turned. And again, not knocking Jalen Milroe. I'm saying there's a reason why these fans now are saying the things they're saying.
Well, can I throw something in there for both of y'all? A similar situation occurred when at the time, Oklahoma quarterback Spencer Rattler was perceived to be the number one pick in the upcoming, draft when he was eligible. He got into the NIL and was going to these autograph signing things, $150 a signature and all that kind of stuff. And look what happened. And his career just kind of fell off the tracks. I'm not saying that Jalen Milroe hasn't, but this is the risk that you take with a 21 or 22-year-old and a coaching change. Man, you know what? It's when we skip class. Oh, I already know that material, and then the final exam is not the one you thought it was going to be, and you make a D or an F. It's got to be frustrating, Rodney. And Yancy, look at Jackson Dart. He's got to be as frustrated as anybody. I mean, these are two programs that were in my top 4 in the SEC. I put Missouri in there too, and I don't know what they are. But Yancy?
Yeah, man, Dart is he's playing like he doesn't know how to win right now, and all he's done is won since he's been at Ole Miss, and then not just Dart, but that goes for the whole team. I mean, you're 132 out of 134 teams in penalties, turning the ball over. They're just playing a mistake riddled game after game after game right now, and Dart, obviously hasn't been able to trust his offensive line since those starters went down. We're going to see what happens when they get them back this week. He's throwing off his back foot a lot. But I kind of blame some of it on scheme too, and the play calls, and there's when your offensive line is struggling, you don't need to be sitting back there for 5 Mississippi throwing 50-yard bombs. You need to be getting the ball out of your hands quickly. And some of that falls on Dart as well, but some of it is the schematically what they're calling for the games. So the thing with Milroe is that under a normal Alabama team, he could be a great game manager. And you let the talent around you win the games, a typical Nick Saban team. But Alabama has too many chinks in the armor right now, and they need Milroe to be kind of like what Ole Miss normally relies on, right? They got chinks around in the armor on offense and defense, and you got a quarterback that tries to carry the team. In Milroe's case, he just doesn't read defenses fast enough. He's not accurate enough to be that guy. It's not a good fit right now for Alabama. They need Superman there at quarterback, and I just don't. Can Milroe be Superman at times? Oh, most definitely he can. But I don't think he's ever going to be able to be a guy that can be consistent to carry a team. That's just my opinion.
No, consistency is the key, and you're right with that. He's an incredible athlete. We know all that. Again, like you said, Superman. He's got those kind of abilities, but it's a hit and miss thing. It's hit and miss, and like you said, I mean, Alabama defensively, not nearly what they have been, and a lot of teams aren't. I mean, the way the game is played now. But just the mistakes. I go back to what and again, I haven't watched enough of Ole Miss, but I hear Yancy talking about the mistakes and being so penalized. Alabama had, 15 penalties in this game. And here's another thing I'll say. I may have said this last week, so I'll make this short. This isn't new. I mean, last year, they go to College Station, they have 14 penalties. They had 17 or 18 against Tennessee a couple of years ago in Knoxville. They had 15, 16 against Texas a couple of years ago in Austin. This has kind of been brewing. It's kind of been an undisciplined style of play. And so it's not just really DeBoer. I mean, it's kind of something he's inherited, but he's going to have to continue to work to it's on him now. It's on him. And again, I think this first year, I'm not being critical of him. I think the first year it's always difficult. I'm just going to be interested in watching how it all plays out and how he manages it.
Well, I mean, the first year coach is like a 16-year-old trying to learn how to drive his father's stick shift convertible. If you can't find them, grind them. It's tough. I mean, that's.
Well, it's certainly Rob following, arguably the greatest coach of all time in football. That's why Lane Kiffin said, and when they would ask about that Alabama job, which he models his whole program after Nick Saban, is whoever takes that job is basically an idiot. Like you are set up to fail. There's nothing you can do to appease the fans after Nick Saban. So, it's kind of a perfect storm. I still think DeBoer is a great coach. I just think that they got to recruit themselves out of it, and I'm sure they will. And you look at the rankings, they're right up there at the top. So I just think that the Bama fans are going to have to be patient. And that's something that is really hard to do, to try to tell that fan base, because, Nick Saban has them compete for a championship
Yeah.
every year.
Rodney, along those lines, you got Missouri coming to town at Bryant-Denny Stadium, Nick Saban Field. What about that matchup concerns you? Again, Auburn, they did what they've been doing all year. They found a way to lose. I don't know how good Missouri is, but Brady Cook, he came back in after an injury. Did y'all hear what he said? He goes, look, I looked at it and I said, I only have 2.5 games left in my life at Faurot Field. I ain't doing it sitting in a hospital. I'm going back on that field. Do whatever you got to do to get me out there. That's leadership, man. That's a man. That's not some guy laying down going, well, I got 500 in the bank. That's a teammate. What about that matchup Saturday?
Well, I mean, I think it's, I don't understand what the line is exactly or why it's what it is. What is it, 13 and a half, 14 last time I saw? Is that right, Rob? Do you know?
I have not
Okay.
seen.
It's
Yancy,
a
have you
bigger
seen the
line.
line?
It's a bigger line.
I have not. I
I
I
think
have
get
it
the
is.
not.
lines. Yeah.
I think it's something like that. No, this thing changes. I see it posted on Tighter Insider, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I should not take it as gospel.
No, but
but
I mean,
but but
that's
yeah,
weird.
I think that might be it. But anyway, regardless, I really think that Missouri comes in, a lot of momentum. The way they came back in that game, Brady Cook, like you said, he goes in, doesn't look like he's going to play the rest of the game, comes back out, rallies them. They've got a lot of momentum. I think Drinkwitz has done a great job there. They've got some skilled people. Burden is one of the top receivers in the country. Alabama's got numerous injuries in the secondary. Sabb is probably out for a while. Xavier Brown has been injured. Devontae Smith has been injured. I'm probably missing somebody. They're going to play a lot of guys. They don't have the depth that they had. It's one reason why they've been playing a lot of guys this year in the event something happened. So they're kind of down in the secondary, but not just that. I mean, it's a really disappointing loss, at Tennessee. This is a real gut check. This is what I posted in my Sunday thoughts. This is a real gut check for this Alabama team. And I think it's going to be a real challenge.
I do too. And I'm going to tell you, I just saw this. I looked it up. Alabama is a 13.5-point favorite
Yeah.
against Missouri, according to the lines at FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel has set the total at 56.5 points for the game. They're interesting. Now, what was the jersey number of former Alabama wide receiver Isaiah Bond?
At Alabama, he was 17.
Okay, I need to know because I'm going to get a Halloween costume. I'm going to dress as Isaiah Bond and knock on all my Auburn friends' doors. I mean, here's what I was going to say. I think that's what Alabama's missing, though, is Yancy. I think you would agree, not having Isaiah Bond and Caleb Downs and some other guys that left because my God. What do you have on each side of the line of scrimmage, gentlemen? 2 or 3 difference makers. You got to have them. And damn it, the Tennessee-Alabama game, here's the thing. Like Gary Harris said it 2 years ago after the loss in Knoxville. He said, Rob, under the Nick Saban era, when Alabama loses, it's an epic event. So it's not like, and even the Vandy game, that one, they never led, though. That was what was so strange about that. But Alabama now, you wonder how they're going to react. Who are the leaders on Alabama and Yancy? Who are the leaders on Ole Miss? I'll start with Rodney.
Well, that's a great question. Offensively, I don't know. I don't know that there is anyone. I mean, I'm sure people would say, well, Milroe. I mean, again, you're talking about real leadership.
Yeah.
We're gonna find out. We're going into this game where we're gonna find out. Defensively, I mean, I would say kind of the same thing. You mentioned all the players that Alabama lost. You mentioned Downs. What about McKinstry could have come back. And again, I understand made a great decision, but McKinstry left early. Terry and Arnold left early. And then guess what? The guy they were hoping was going to step up and replace one of those guys, they thought he had first round potential. Trey Amos, he bolts for Ole Miss. So you lost your top 3 corners. I mean, and then you lost this great safety. I mean, it's been rough. That's not to mention you lost Dallas Turner. You lost Chris Braswell. You lost guys. So it's there's a lot defensively, but you're asking about leadership, and I'm just telling you, I don't know that there is any out there right now.
Yancy?
Yeah, that's great. That's great points there. At Ole Miss, undoubtedly, it started on offense and JJ Piggy's on defense. Those are your two two alpha males. Those undoubtedly are the leaders. And I'm sure it makes it tough on Dart right now when he's playing. Let's be blunt, his worst football of his career right now. So, we'll see. Again. They got 4 of their offensive line starters back this week. All happened at one time during the bye week. They've missed all the SEC games to date, and they get their star defensive end back. And so I think it's going to. The only question mark really on offense is nobody really knows the extent of Trey Harris's injury. So that's really the only question mark going into the Oklahoma game.
So bottom line is, you can't win with a team full of betas. You got to have those alpha males. And then you got to have an alpha coach. Start with you, Yancy. Lane Kiffin, you can only get so upset with what's going on the offense before people got to step up and make plays. What's your gut prediction on Ole Miss and Oklahoma Saturday? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I mean, Roddy was talking about 13.5 points over Missouri. Ole Miss is favored by 21.5 now over Oklahoma, and they're not averaging but about 23 points a game in SEC play. And the Ole Miss fan base is like, how in the world is that true? That they're a 21.5 point favorite over Oklahoma. But, I think they start off kind of slow. They'll probably score the first possession of the game like they always do. And then they're going to be a little bit rusty. I mean, I don't care. 3 of those offensive linemen returning are 3-year starters, going into their 4th year starting at Ole Miss. But they've been out. They've been out for over a month. And it's hard to get that offensive line in sync again when you're making that transition like that. Oklahoma's still got a really stout defense. I mean, they're down 21-0 against South Carolina when they had given up 42 yards of offense. So they played a mistake-riddled game as well. And it's just all about getting well offensively. I mean, defensively, they've far exceeded expectations. I mean, they're first in the country in 3rd down conversion on defense, 3rd in the country in red zone defense, 2nd in the country in points given up, 3rd in the country in total defense, 4th in the country in QB sacks, 5th in the country on pressure on quarterbacks. I mean, they got an elite defense, and I think everybody was expecting a really good defense, but not elite. It's the offense that's holding the team back, and that's really stumped everybody.
Well, okay, now what you just said makes total sense. Averaging only 23 points a game in SEC play. That's what you got to look at. Rodney, you look at Alabama. What's Alabama averaging score-wise in SEC games?
Well, obviously they scored 17 against Tennessee. They scored 27 against South Carolina. They scored 35 against Vanderbilt. They scored 41 against Georgia. I mean, those numbers are probably dropping as we see. I mean, obviously dropping, as we move along. Again, they scored what in the first half against Georgia? 28. And could have been more, but they scored 28. So let's look at the second half of Georgia. I mean, they score, what was it, 13?
Yes.
Okay, so they scored 13 in the second half against Georgia, which really against Georgia, that's still pretty good.
Yeah.
But okay, so let's take Vandy out of the mix, and again, I think they've struggled. I mean, they didn't struggle against Vandy. They scored two per possession minute. They scored 2 points per minute.
Okay. All right.
But they're not sound offensively right now. They're not. So if we want to look forward to this Missouri game, just real quick, like Yancy kind of summarized for Oklahoma and Ole Miss. Look, I could see Alabama coming out and playing well, and initially and all this stuff. I just don't think this team is. I don't sense that they have what it takes to really turn the corner. A lot of mistakes, a lot of things. It wouldn't surprise me if Alabama wins a close one, but then again, it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't, to be quite honest with you.
That's the new SEC. Here's some interesting stats. Alabama has defeated Georgia in 9 of their last 10 matchups. Georgia, Texas. I was so adamant that Georgia would beat Texas, and most people thought I was crazy. Well, that's, I hear that a lot. But I was like, Georgia's going to kill them. Well, Texas was 2 of 15 on third down conversions against Georgia. Texas was 1 of 5 on fourth down conversions against Georgia. And I guess Carson Beck started off terribly against Texas, and he bounced back. He looks like Tom Petty's long lost son, man. I mean, this guy's so cool. One arm is a tattoo and the other one is flesh, but he's really he's an interesting quarterback. But both of y'all, I mean, I have not heard it put so well. Both of y'all painted such a accurate picture of what I think's going on with Ole Miss and Alabama. And I think both games will be completely different than what people think. Ole Miss, a 21.5. Who would have thought we'd be talking about Ole Miss as a 21.5 point favorite against Oklahoma? And
when they're struggling like that, it's unbelievable. And you look at, you're talking about Ewers.
wow.
I mean, he was obviously scared to death by that second half. He didn't want any part of that Georgia defense. He went throwing on his back foot. He was running backwards throwing the ball in that second half. He did not want to be hit again. And you look at going into the season, all the talk was about Ewers. It was about Beck. It was about Jalen Milroe, and it was about Dart nationally. Those were your 4 head honchos for the Heisman, and all 4 of them are just not having a good season. So it's that's what makes football so fun, though, right?
I'll say this I'll say this real quickly. That again, I thought the Georgia Texas game, would Sark devise a way. I mean, he was really successful against Kirby in that game they had when Sark was OC here at Alabama. Of course, different teams, but Sark is so good at scheming, play calling, and all this type of thing. Here's part of the thing. This is what I really thought. Texas got physicaled. They got popped. They don't want to get popped.
Yeah.
They got
This is the one thing that I thought that Sark, this is the one thing I thought he had to answer. Is this still a soft program? And when I say soft, they're really good, but this isn't TCU. This isn't Texas Tech. You're playing in the SEC now. This is a grind. Can you withstand that week in and week out, that physical? And Texas didn't want any part of it. Now, here's the thing. No. Ewers is the perfect quarterback for Kirby to defend. He doesn't really threaten them with his feet. He's not bad. He can move around. He can manipulate in the pocket, and he can scramble a little bit. But Kirby could tee off on him. Kirby was worried about Milroe's feet, right? He got burned with Milroe's feet.
Yeah.
That's the quarterback that can really hurt Kirby. So Ewers was the kind of guy that Kirby likes to go against more in terms of more of a stationary guy.
Yeah, is it just me, or if either of y'all seen the new Dr. Pepper commercial with Quinn Ewers on there, and he's talking about like a backup, and he says, backup that has great hair and a lot of famous relatives. Is there a little bit of a problem maybe with Arch? I mean, more than we want to give thought
Well, they
to.
got
I mean,
after him pretty good too when he was in there.
he didn't want anything to. Yeah,
No,
it
no,
was.
no. I looked at him
Yeah.
on the sideline, and that he kind of he had a funny look on his face too.
Yeah, no,
Hey,
he didn't want any part. It reminded me very similar of the Georgia Ole Miss game last year. Ole Miss was a great team and a playoff team, under these current format, but they were not a true national contender. They weren't physical enough, and that's the same goes with Texas. There's no way you can change that by season's end. They are who they are,
yes.
and they're not a national championship contender. Texas, no
I
way, no how.
I did not have Texas in my top 4 preseason. I think they're good. They're really good, but
Really good. They're top five,
they
top
are.
eight,
But
but they're
they're
not. They're not top two, three
what I
by any
saw with
means.
Georgia over there was men against boys. I mean, it was that big of
Yeah,
a difference. And say what you want about Kirby Smart, but that's what you want your coach to be, is that I believe in you. I don't care what everybody says about you. I believe in you. And the reason y'all just said it, the reason I picked Georgia to beat Texas was I said they're going to go out there and play a full 60 and just be relentless. And
Yeah,
Texas has not had to go a full 60 all season long. It's not to say that you're discrediting Georgia if you say Texas hadn't played anybody, but 90% of that was Georgia in that victory the other night. So it was crazy. Look, we got to
hey,
wrap it
how
up.
about Texas Vanderbilt this Saturday?
What
They got to go to Nashville. You never know, right?
Rodney, the
Well,
world we
look,
live
there's
in.
there's one thing we learned last weekend is that Georgia is still the
Yeah.
top dog. If Georgia gets in the playoffs last year, there's no doubt in my mind they win it all. They've been the best team for years now, and that they still are. They've separated themselves from
Yeah,
everybody else.
it's scary. Look, Rodney Orr, let them know how they can follow you. Yancy, you do the same, and then we'll say something about our sponsors and get out of here. But start us
Yep.
off, Rodney.
It's TigerInsider.com. It's only $48 a year if you're an Alabama fan. You can get instant access right now with your credit card, or there is an address there to send a check. And that gives you all our premium information, my Sunday thoughts and all of that, but also our all sports forum. Let me tell you, it's been wild. Our community of Alabama fans there.
I can
So
imagine.
it is not for the weak of heart. Trust me.
Well, as we said,
Yeah, the only coach who could follow Nick Saban would have been
Yeah,
Kirby,
probably
right?
so.
That's the only one that could have truly followed Nick Saban there. And it's just at Yancy Porter. That's it. If you want to follow me anywhere, or Rebel Yell Hotline can be listened throughout the state of Mississippi and Tennessee.
hey,
Thank you,
look, thank
guys.
you both so much, and we'll see you next week, man. And let me say this before, as y'all check out and get on with your day, about our sponsors. Great ones like Landers Ford, Memphis.com. Landers Ford, proud to have them as a sponsor. They are open Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Service department, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Located out there in Collierville at the corner of Poplar and Houston Levee. Have a huge inventory, cars, trucks, and SUVs, pre-owned as well. They have a large buying group, and they can deliver vehicles anywhere you are. Ask for our man, the general manager, Brad Bellamy, out at LandersFordMemphis.com. They are great people to work with, and their motto is, if you didn't buy your last vehicle at Landers, you probably paid too much. Brad Bellamy and the people out there will take care of you. You will love working with them. Also, I was out at Hewlett and Dunn yesterday. Stuff coming in every day. You're not going to believe it. Barber, Filson, Duckheads, STS, Pendleton, Schaefer, great looking men's and women's clothes, and over 7,000 pairs of boots. Get out there, and if you need your body work done on your vehicle, Tom Martin's Body Shop, located at G.E. Patterson and B.B. King in downtown Memphis. Find all of our sponsors on our website at sidelines.live. For executive producer extraordinaire, Heisman Trophy candidate Brendan Martin, I'll just say this. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out every day, find ways to help other people. The stronger you are, and the better you are for everybody else. God bless America, folks. See you in the morning. Watch this show and
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.